Hello everyone, it's early Saturday morning. I'm in Sunderland and I'm in the area that once was Bishop Wearmouth. Just to give you some idea where I am, just in the distance is Sunderland Minster, formerly Bishop Wearmouth Parish Church. I'm actually on one of Sunderland's lesser known street, and it's this small stretch here down to Chester Road called Infirmary Row. There used to be a row of houses here back in the day. There wasn't many, I think there was only probably about 5 or 6. Then we used to have South Johnson Street, which went through that car park, and then beyond that Johnson Street. So when Bishop Wearmouth started expanding from the old medieval settlement over there through the 1700s, early 1800s, it started spreading out over here and out towards the Vork site and down to where the bridges are today. So this is Infirmary Row, and there's a clue to why it's called Infirmary Row. And if you look, there's this old wall here. Now I bet that wall is from the early 1800s, because in the 1820s this building here was built, and that was the old Sunderland Infirmary. I think it was the architect, was it Ignatius Bonomi or something like that. He was the one who designed it. It's still here today, and I think it's university buildings now, but it was when I was a student here. But as you can see, it's got the old classical hospital windows, high, to let in a lot of light for the patients. Now this particular video is called The Last Journey of John Wilson Ewbank. I might be able to, if I've worked out the laptop, I might be able to put some of his work into this particular video. But about 6 years ago, when I learned about the Gill Cemetery, which is about 400 metres away, one of the first things I found out that there was a man called John Wilson Ewbank buried a pauper in that particular building. Now, the story was quite close to my heart because John was born in Darlington in 1799. That's where I was born, Darlington. Also, he ended up in Sunderland like me, and I've worked 16 years, about 100 metres from where he was actually born. Sorry, where he was actually died. Sorry, I'm just trying to concentrate because it's spitting on the rain a bit. I'll have a look for if I can get anywhere for some shelter. But his parents, don't go around the front, his parents ended up in Gateshead, and he got an apprenticeship with a painting and decorating firm in Newcastle by a gentleman known as the surname Coulson. They set up an office in Edinburgh, so young John headed off there to work for them, but he had some talent, so he got some art lessons, and it was seen that he had a talent for painting, for drawing, so he'd go off to around Edinburgh, bits of Scotland, and did his work. So obviously the pit business went by the wayside, and he set off as an art teacher and just a generally painter. So there's the building there. If you have a look, if you stand back, I think it's one of Sunderland's finest buildings from the past that's still standing. Now, John became the first English member, and I think the first painter of the Royal Scottish Academy, because he had such a talent. If you want to look at some of his work, just Google him and see what paintings will pop up in some of his drawings. He married a lady who was from the Canongate, which is the bottom of the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, and they live in various fine houses in Edinburgh, one being at Union Street, which is just on the edge of the new town. He was making lots of money. He was a man you would go to if you wanted your kids to learn to draw, or if you wanted to work commissioned. But sadly, he hit the bottle, and so did his wife. So what happened was his work became less desired, he was less reliable, and he sort of went into just the disgrace. So him, his wife and his 4 children left Newcastle in disgrace. He was thrown out of the Royal Scottish Academy, and he ended up back in Newcastle. In the 1841 census, he was living near what is the Tyne Bridge today. And then at some point he moved to Sunderland in the early 1840s, and he used to hawk himself around town selling little paintings on tin or bits of card for money to get drink. He lived in hovels, he only had bricks for furniture. His wife and children sadly were criminals into theft, drunken behaviour. A far cry from those days up in Edinburgh. Now, sadly, he got typhus, which is spread by like mites and ticks and fleas and chiggers and things like that. So he came into this particular infirmary, sadly, on the 20th of November 1847. He passed away, and his body was put in a deadhouse. There used to be a deadhouse just on this corner. And on the 2nd of December, he was given a pauper's burial at the Gill Cemetery. There wouldn't have been a huge attendance, but there would have been a few people. I don't even know if his wife and children would have attended, because they'd probably be out drinking. But there would have been a few people attended, because he was well known in Sunderland. People would see him walking around trying to sell his paintings, or he was a bit of a character in those late days. We used to turn up at people's houses after he went. They used to clean the chair where it sat, and because he had little money, because it all went on drink, he couldn't afford a pair of decent shoes. So he used to, apparently, one report is that he actually had he used to put like black paint and stuff on shoe polish on his toes, so it looked like he had socks on and so on. But so his body would have been brought along here. Obviously it didn't look like this back then, but here's a glimpse of the past here, because this is Hope Street. Look at the old cobbles there. Opposite where I'm stood, where it says the Vault Yard. Oh, I've never seen that before. That's the new pub, where there's about a couple of dozen people buried under that in some vault which is sealed up. So that's good to see. They've named it after the history of the vault. But just where that coach is now, just about there, that was the Hine Street graveyard, and then there was the Bishop Wearmouth Parish Church just behind it. So there was 3 graveyards in 1847. This one here was hardly ever used, and the churchyard closed in effectively in 1848. So he would have been buried down here. As I mentioned before about my connections, last 10 years the only place I've ever been on holiday is Edinburgh. I've been like once a year for that, at least once a year for that particular period, because I don't fly. And I was born in 74. He was 47 when he died. And it was just so close to a lot of the stuff. Probably I like to drink too much, probably as well. So I always like telling this story, because it also highlights the importance of the history of the Gill Cemetery. So come down here. December the 2nd he was laid to rest, so probably a cold December day, and I don't think the cemetery chapel had even been open till 1848. So it would have probably been, and I don't think they would have given him the privilege of a funeral service up there at the parish church. It's a misty morning. Let's see if we can see the church. Sunderland Minster now. Just behind there, so it wasn't far from where he died, and also the Gill Cemetery wasn't far, so I think it would have been coffin, on the back of a horse and cart along here. There was at least 5 children. One died at infancy when they were up in Edinburgh, but there was 3 who were just, sadly, just like him, who were all talented artists because he taught them how to paint and draw. But one daughter emigrated, and she had a successful life out in Australia. She was one of the first people to get a state pension in Australia. I think, sorry, from memory, I think she was about 106, 108 when she died. I think, when was it? Probably about 1930s or 40s. So there was one happy story in that particular family. And this, I mentioned about the Gill Cemetery. This is the only thing that is left of it. And this is, we're at Thornton Place. So this was one of the entrances into the cemetery. But this is literally all that's left. Because the cemetery extended right across this road towards the roundabout, but this front part, I think, was just ornamental, like laid out as grass, and so on. But where's that one now? Let's see if we can see through here. Got a few minutes to spare. Let's see if it can. So we can get this way at the Gill Cemetery. Well, that's one of Sunderland's little parks in there. It's early morning, it's only about 6 a.m. So the cemetery actually came all the way down to this roundabout here. It's quite misty. But after he died, when his wife and children appeared in court, he was often mentioned as the unfortunate John Wilson Ewbank, and people took pity on them. To be honest, they were lucky not to be transported. The amount of crime they committed, like theft and stuff like that, and drunkenness. But one daughter, they'd been to court about 20 times, but when she was a young girl, she was painted by Symes, one of the leading Scottish painters of the time. That's how close he was to all the great and the good up in Edinburgh. And it said there was a picture of her, like 3-year-old in a white dress, stood against a tree, and then it said that this week, I think it was about 1849 or something, that same girl is before the Sunderland magistrates for the 19th time. So in 1869, 2 daughters, it was Mary, John, but he was using the name Richard Ewbank for some reason. And I think Margaret as well was the other daughter. We're living down in Warwickshire, in Birmingham, and they again lived in a hovel. They had a lack of furniture, and all they used to do was paint, if they could afford it, and drink. Just like the father, sadly, but they all had talent. And on Christmas Day, 1869, Mary, that young girl who was all the picture of innocence when she was painted back in there, I think it was 1820s, early, I think it was 1820 she was actually painted. She was she went to a local park on Christmas Day with some paint, and sadly swallowed it. She was found by a policeman, but she died about a week later, because the green paint at the time, you might know, contained lots of poison, so she'd taken her own life, so it was like a sad end. So going back to John, this is where he was laid to rest, in an unmarked grave, lost to history. It'll be somewhere down there, along with Dr. William Reid Clanny, William Blackett, Thomas Pigg, and thousands more long gone residents of Bishop Wearmouth. I have written quite a few things about John across all the different Facebook posts groups that I post in, but if you get the chance, if I haven't managed to put editing anything into this video, just Google his name and have a look at some of the work. I am lucky that I've got two of those paintings that from his very, very late days in Sunderland. Just small little things. Somebody knew of me, interested in him, and kindly gave them to me, so I got them framed, and it's like two of my proudest possessions, because even at the very end you can see the talent for the man. I've only ever found two of the paintings and drawings that he did when he was in Sunderland, but he went all over. He went up to North Shields, but he was down here. So lots of people had a Ewbank in the collection at the time. I'll just go around here and we'll end the video on this platform. If you're ever in Sunderland on a hot sunny day, this is a great spot to come down and take in the views. Thank God. I thought it was going to absolutely book it down, so I've managed to get around the video without having to stop. But here we are, Saturday morning. This is the Gill Cemetery, the final resting place of thousands of people. There's lots of wildlife out, I can see. Just going to look down here, see if there's any foxes around like that. There was one here about 5-6 weeks ago, one further down. And lots of rabbits. But this is going to be the new park. There's the infirmary. And there's Gally's Gill. Something moving down there. Right, I just want to say thank you for anybody who has watched this video. If you did like it, please give it a like and click on the subscribe. I'm off to McDonald's just in the centre of town just for a coffee before I walk home, because sadly I don't have a car anymore. So I'm all on foot now, so it's going to be a lot harder to actually do particular videos, so I'm going to have to be a bit clever and think of something to do. So anyway, this video is dedicated to John Wilson Ewbank and the great work that he produced in his relatively short life. And even though it ended in a sad way, what he's done, some of the work he's done is that will last for a long time, you know. So anyway, I'm off now. See you next time. Bye.